All right, well, good afternoon and welcome to the Leon County DEC Candidate Forum for Tallahassee City Commission Seat 5. My name is Jonathan Weber. I've been a Tallahassee resident for 14 years. Before my professional career and my family responsibilities really took off, I was a frequent attendee of the Leon County DEC meetings, and I was briefly a precinct captain for the Indian Head Acres neighborhood. Before we get started, I want to be explicitly clear that I am here today as a private citizen on my off hours from work. My professional position is with Florida Conservation Voters, but I'm here today just on my own behalf on the weekend for myself. We have a packed agenda today, so let's go ahead and get started. As a reminder to the candidates, you will have 2 minutes to respond to the question, and I will be keeping time and I will notify you when your time is up. So please respect the time limits. The people of Tallahassee deserve to learn as much as possible about the issues impacting our city. It's okay to finish your comments in under 2 minutes. Please do not feel pressured to take every answer to the limit. We are planning a Q&A at the end of the program. So for our viewers, please type your questions in the chat box. We have moderators reading them. And for my final note, let's please keep this forum cordial and respectful. I'm looking forward to learning more about your plans for our community. Okay. So first up, we will allow for a 2-minute introductory comments from the candidates. We'll go alphabetical order of last names. So first up will be Shelby Green, then followed by Adner Marcelin, and then Dianne Williams-Cox. Shelby, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hi, everyone.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to spotlight you first. So if someone could help me spotlight her, or if you could raise your hand digitally, Shelby, so we can spotlight you.
Okay, let me let me try figuring out how to raise.
I found you. There you go. Sorry about that.
Great. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you, John, for the introduction. My name is Shelby. And before starting, I just want to thank Marcia, Leon Dems, and all the other organizers who planned this forum and giving us the opportunity. And so I'm running to be your next city commissioner because we need strong, effective leadership and a commissioner who's fiercely devoted to equitably recovering from this pandemic, rebuilding the public's trust, and adapting to this changing climate. Last year, at the height of the pandemic, our calls for racial and social justice, transparency, accountability, safety, and support were ignored. And we need a responsive government now that responds in real time to growing issues like people not being able to afford the utility bill, ineffective and inconvenient bus service, and lack of safe walking and biking infrastructure, and the growing need for safe and affordable housing. And I'm specifically running for this seat because in 2018, I voted for Commissioner Williams-Cox, thinking that she would bring this change that we desperately need. And we haven't seen that yet. I am a faithful Democrat. I registered almost 70 years ago when I was 18 and first started voting. And I believe I'm the best qualified candidate because I've been here in Tallahassee since 2014. I came here to study chemical engineering, and I've learned throughout this time Tallahassee's real issues, and a lot of it stems from a lack of accountability and transparency. We deserve justice, we deserve foresight, we deserve safety, and I plan to deliver those values with my background in engineering and data-driven policy analysis. Right now, I live in Lafayette Park, but when I first came to Tallahassee, I lived in the Southern Scholarship Foundation, and then I moved to West Tennessee Street and also Jackson Bluff. And since living here, I've served as supervisor on our Soil and Water Board, a friend of the Providence Neighborhood Association. I've worked in Leon County's Office of Sustainability and have been continually serving as a civil and public servant. And my biggest commitment, if I was elected, is increasing the quality and access of our public services and infrastructure and making it easier for people to reach opportunities that allow them to gain upward social mobility. And although
We're at 2 minutes, Shelby. So.
We're at 2 minutes? Yep. Okay.
It goes quick.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sorry. And I apologize. I'll try to put my finger up. I don't know if y'all can see me or not. I'll try to let y'all know when you're getting that time. Okay.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Adner. Please go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. My name is Adner Marcelin, and I am proud to be running for City Commission Seat 5 to represent you and your voice in City Hall. A little bit about me. I came to Tallahassee in 2004 as a native from Stuart, Florida, to attend Florida State University, where I majored in criminology and criminal justice. From there, I went on to Florida Tech to obtain my master's in business administration before finally concluding with my law degree from Western Michigan Thomas M. Cooley Law School. Since then, I have worked here locally in our community in the field of social justice, working with attorney Ben Crump for 13 years as a firm administrator. And most recently, I served as the city executive for Tallahassee of a new credit union in town, Self-Help Credit Union, which is working to help shorten our housing crisis in town by strengthening the number of homeowners that we have in the community by matching grants with working class individuals who may not get serviced by traditional banking and financial institutions. The reason that I'm running for city commissioner is because over the last few months, it's become more evident to myself that Tallahassee is ready for change. We're in need of a Tallahassee where our neighborhoods are safe, where we provide substantive solutions to the affordable housing crisis, poverty, and where we're looking at our local government as a center of concern and not a source of mismanagement as well as ethical dilemmas. We don't have to settle and accept the status quo. We're here to fight for issues. And those issues include making Tallahassee a place where people want to come and open businesses and pursue their dreams, making our neighborhoods safe again by taking real measures to control crime, and building trust between our law enforcement officials and our community. We want to make sure that we create economic development for everyday people and not just the special interests who seem to have taken over our government. We want to make sure that we're creating affordable housing for the people and not just giving developers a handout. We also want to make sure thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. All right. Next up, we have Dianne. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Okay, let me find Dianne really quickly to spotlight. If any other hosts can see her more quickly and add the spotlight. Or if Dianne, you want to, oh, did we lose her? No. Dianne, are you here? Okay, she was having some internet difficulties, so she might be having some problems right now. I don't know, we want to give her a few minutes. She might be.
It shows her as in the meeting, but her microphone is not displaying, so the audio may be out.
Right. Okay. Let's give her a few minutes. And Marcia, do you want to share the slides, or if someone wants to talk about the upcoming forum that we have, well, we just take a few minutes, and I will text Dianne and see if I can give her any assistance.
Unfortunately, I do not have the information on the upcoming meetings, but I do believe they're happening throughout the summer. I'm not sure who's up next, but who's the next moderator? That's what I want to know. I'm jealous.
Be careful, we'll rope you in again.
That's right.
Jonathan.
She's back.
Oh, okay, great.
Oh, all right, here we go. Please go ahead.
Okay, I can't undo my camera.
Okay, you're a co-host now. There we
Okay,
go.
All right, here we go. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what is happening, but my internet, I'm sitting in the same spot I sit in for every meeting. And for whatever reason, we're having internet connection issues today. But let me just say that I am your commissioner, City Commissioner Dianne Williams-Cox. I am proud to have served you these almost 4 years. I've been in this community 30 plus years working in this community to make life better for all of us, not just for myself and my family, but for all of us. I've served in the various capacities, and I want to thank you all, the Democratic Executive Committee and all others who are sponsoring today's event. I've been in your spot many times, not in a virtual environment, but in a physical environment. I've served as the Vice President of Public Relations for the DEC in the past, and I've also served as the Vice Chair of the DEC. So I understand the hard work that you all put in to make this happen. So thank you for your efforts. I am currently serving as your city commissioner. I came to the commission saying that I would be the voice of the people in the room, and I have been the voice of the people in the room. Things are happening in our city that may not have ever happened before, especially in communities that may have felt as though they've been left behind. Not only have I been able to do that, I've been able to create a cross coalition of people across our city who are working together to move us forward. We're spending money in places where it's never been spent before. We're working on poverty, trying to bring people out of poverty. We're working on infrastructure to bring all parts of the city up to par, to make sure that no matter where you are in the city, that you're safe, and to make sure that you also have some of the same amenities. So I am running for re-election because we have so much more work to do, and I need to do that work with you. So I won't take 2 minutes to say that. I'm going to just ask that you check out my record and look at what I have done, not what I am saying that I will do, but what I have done. And I've done my level best to be responsive to the needs of our community. And I will continue to do that. I will continue to engage and be in our communities, and we will work together to move our city forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And candidates, for your introductory remarks. You can see 2 minutes goes pretty darn fast, so I appreciate you guys trying to stick to that time limit. So we will now move into the Q&A portion of the program, where I'll ask questions and you all can respond. We're going to go alphabetically by first name, and we'll rotate going forward from there. So first issue we'll talk about will be about the city budget. The city manager recently told the commission that revenues are not going to be sufficient to pay for anticipated spending for this year or next. Community groups are asking for increased funding. The city manager's suggestion includes slowing down street and sidewalk work, delaying new hires when employees leave, and keeping the tax rate unchanged. These steps would lower but not eliminate the projected deficit. Adner, what are your thoughts about how to balance the budget? Do you think the city should consider cuts in any specific areas? Do you think the city should consider raising the millage rate?
Well, my initial thoughts with the budget for the city is that we first have to be good stewards of the money that we have. We can't create a budget crisis and then tell the community to hang on and work with us while we're having it. We have different organizations, that are in different capacities. So we have some that are committees of the county and the city, and they cannot receive funding from different places. And then we have other needs in the community, such as art and our arts and our animal shelters that are all asking for budgets. These are all very good organizations, and there's no way to really say no. However, we found ourselves in this crisis because we did not use funds that were available to us to offset these needs in our community. And so now we're pitting the community to choose between these very valuable organizations that does great work and meeting the basic needs of the city. Right now, where we are, I think we need to do an assessment to find out where we can find available funding within the city to help meet the budget. But in the future, when we have funds available, like those that were available, the 20 million that was available there, we should have looked at funding and making sure that the needs of the city were met first, and then taking care of the groups before we just handed out money as a giveaway to the city. And so for myself, the position that we find ourselves now, you don't want to tax the residents, but we also need to address some very serious issues in the community. And this is what happens when you are not conscious and fiscally responsible with the budget that you have. So honestly, we find ourselves in a position. I'm not in favor of raising the millage rate right now. I think right now we're going to have to find and make some concessions everywhere. But hopefully in the future, we can make some more fiscally responsible decisions and hopefully meet the budget.
Thank you. Perfect timing. Thank you. Next up, Dianne, have you proposed a solution to the budget deficit? And what do you think the city should do?
Absolutely. We're all working together to look at our budget and to determine what it is that we need to do. I am absolutely, positively not in favor of raising the millage rate. We've held that millage rate for the past several years, and I'm in favor of holding it to 4.1. We will tighten our belts. We will balance our budget because we have to, and we will do that without the degradation of services. We may have to delay some services, but I am confident that our staff will do what we need to do, will present to us some options. I will talk with, as I've already been doing, talking with our city manager about potential options to meet our needs, and we will get that done. We have always
I think we lost Dianne for a moment.
I think we did. She's frozen.
Tell you what,
To work together to make that happen.
Dianne, unfortunately we lost you for about 30 seconds there. If you just want to restate your last little point, and we'll just keep going.
We will continue to work together to tighten our belts and make sure that we balance our budget without degradation of service.
Okay, thank you so much. Next up, Shelby, what do you think the city should do about the projected deficit?
Yeah, I think the first thing is we don't deserve vague answers. We can't just accept that the city is going to tighten its belt when they should have been doing that previously. And like what Commissioner Williams-Cox stated when she said there will be services that will be delayed, which neighborhoods will be impacted? And are these the same neighborhoods that have continuously had to suffer from delayed services and delayed investment? And so the first thing, in order to respond to this budget deficit, the city needs to look at where they went wrong, and they need to be transparent about it so that we as voters and residents can hold them accountable. As someone who has a background in data engineering, the very first thing I'm always looking for is where is the data, where is the money that's coming in, and where is the money that's coming out? As residents, a majority of the city's budget for revenue comes from the services and taxes that we pay on our utility bill, and that goes to the general fund. And then from there, it's very hard to follow the money. And so I think if the city is going to be committed to not allowing a budget deficit to occur again, the first thing they have to do is be transparent about where money is going and where money is coming from. And the second thing is we need an audit of the budget. If we don't have transparency, we will not have accountability. And unfortunately, that will to occur again in the future.
Thank you, Shelby. Please make sure you're on mute if you are on Zoom. Thank you so much. Next up, our next topic is going to be poverty and equality in our city. Dianne, you're first this time. Your website says people deserve revitalized neighborhoods to eliminate blight and a chance to earn a livable wage. As commissioner, what have you proposed the city do to revitalize neighborhoods, provide jobs, and otherwise deal with poverty and inequalities?
Dianne, can you hear us? We don't have video for you, and it looks like you're muted, but I imagine you are having internet difficulties.
Jonathan, I just go to the next candidate.
I just got unmuted.
Go ahead.
What is happening here is that I'm having some internet issues, so I'm between my phone and my desktop trying to stay connected. So let me do this.
You're gonna have to mute one of them.
Okay. So to answer your question, yes, people do deserve to live in communities that are not blighted. They do deserve to have, can you hear me, Jonathan? Okay. And what we have been doing is on the CRA board that I sit on, we have allocated $6.4 million for the bond neighborhood to do just that. We have also allocated $6.4 million for Frenchtown to do just that. From the city budget, we've also allocated $6.4 million for Griffin Heights because they're not in the CRA. And we're doing those things to make sure that residents are driving through the Neighborhood First plan, driving what are the things that they want to have happen in their communities with these funds. And that is how we're satisfying and trying to bring areas up to par to meet with other parts of our city, to drive out poverty, to make people feel vibrant and comfortable where they live. And those dollars are being used for infrastructure. Those dollars are also being used for rehabbing, for streetscaping, and for doing a number of things in the parks to give kids places to enjoy and play. So we are making an impact on poverty. We're not just talking about it, we're doing it.
Thank you so much. Shelby, it seems Tallahassee is two communities, one comfortably middle class or above, the other poor and struggling. As your website suggests, you are concerned about the following issues. What would you have the city do to revitalize neighborhoods, provide jobs, and reduce the rate of poverty and inequality?
Yeah. And especially Tallahassee, thinking about its historic past and how public infrastructure was used to decimate communities and influenced poverty and reduced access to social mobility and opportunities. So the very first thing is we need to help neighborhoods uplift themselves and become more self-sufficient by giving them information. One thing that both the city and county commission has done is greenlighted the Amazon project. The Amazon is going to bring 1,000 jobs to Leon County, but the city is not providing any bus service to Amazon. And when you think about it, we also have currently a company called Nelson that is doing a Star Metro route optimization study. So the city is investing in providing opportunity to these neighborhoods, but they are not actually doing it. If they were actually investing in these neighborhoods, they would make sure from day one that Amazon would be providing public transportation, or that they would be making Amazon as a point of interest in the study to make sure people can access the $18 an hour jobs. So to revitalize neighborhoods, we have to center them in our budget. We have to center and prioritize them in public infrastructure projects. If we don't do that, then we are not uplifting these neighborhoods and helping them access opportunity and growth. So we have to support these neighborhoods, and that starts in the policy phase. It's not just we're going to do something and then not deliver. We have to deliver and center these neighborhoods moving forward, especially as the climate is changing. And one way the City Commission can do that is by investing in solar panels and community solar in these neighborhoods to reduce their utility bill, so that they have more dollars in their pocket that can go towards grocery bills and buying their kids materials for school and helping them receive adequate education. It all starts with making sure that people in these communities are being prioritized and uplifted and supported.
Thank you very much. Adner, you're next. Your website says you would create economic development and affordable housing for the benefit of everyday people, not developers and special interests. How would you do this and address neighborhood revitalization, job creation, and reducing the rate of poverty and inequality?
Thank you for the question. As I reflect back on the city's and the county's joint housing workshop report, we have to really take into consideration these numbers, that nearly 15,000 very low and extremely low income families here in Tallahassee, they're cost burden and they rent. According to the census, 26% of families within our city and 18% in the county, they live below the poverty line, and about 30%, are what we considered working poor. I think the first step in order to address poverty is to address pay equity. We have to make sure that we find different ways to build the economy here in Tallahassee so that individuals can get wages that are decent and can enable them to take care of themselves and their families. Many of the families that I've talked to while on the campaign trail, they're talking about how they're struggling to make ends meet. And so when people are in bare poverty, things happen. And so different ways that you have to do that. Yes, you have to be very strategic. We can't just keep relying that every time someone says something about poverty, the city's response is tempo, a program that when we last checked has only placed 2 or 3 individuals within the last year. And so we have to make sure that we have a solution that, while that's a good start, we have to make sure that we have a solution and programs from within city government that works for everybody. And people want to earn their own way. They don't want a handout, they want opportunity. And that's why it's important that we watch what we do with Blueprint dollars, making sure that we put money into our community, we invest it wisely so that it creates economic opportunity and jobs that are well-paying, that enables people to come out of poverty by making a decent and livable wage to take care of themselves and their families. And that is what our priority is going to be. But that comes from being fiscally responsible and making great investments that have a return for our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next topic we're going to move on to is going to be crime in our city. Tallahassee does have a problem with violent crime. This problem has not gone away, as Sheriff McNeil's recent homicide report makes clear. Shelby, you're up first this time. Your campaign website says that you want to make our neighborhoods safe. What would you, as commissioner, do to reduce violent crime and make our neighborhoods safe? What role do you see for the current, which has no budget, staff, or subpoena power, or a reconstituted Citizens Review Board playing?
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned with the Anatomy of a Homicide report, the thing that we saw in there is that 87% of crimes that are happening in our county are happening right here in the city. And the second thing is almost half of those crimes are happening because people cannot afford to pay their bills. Period. So the first thing that we need to do to have safe neighborhoods is people need to be able to access adequate employment. And so like I draw back earlier to the example of Amazon, but knowing that the city knowing that they're investing public dollars into a private corporation, saying it's going to bring economic development, but they're not providing public transportation for people in these neighborhoods that are suffering not only from poverty, but from crime and displacement that can't even get up there to have these higher paying jobs. That is not supporting safe neighborhoods. So again, if we want safe neighborhoods, people in neighborhoods, especially poverty-stricken neighborhoods, need to be able to access better opportunity, whether that's through education or through work. The city could offer scholarships for people to go to TCC and then transfer to our public universities. The city could provide adequate public transportation so people can access jobs further from their communities. As we know, most of the commercial corridors are not on the south or west side of town. They're in farther places from where these people live. And so safe neighborhoods require people to be able to access opportunities to regain financial stability and to move upward in society. And that starts with having an adequate public infrastructure, whether it's through transportation, it's through safe streets so people can walk and bike and get to where they need to go. And that will allow people to spend less money and less time on commuting and be able to access jobs that pay livable wages so that they can do what they need to move up in society and grow their community and become uplifted and more supported. That's the very first thing we need to do, which is invest into our public infrastructure to provide social mobility.
Thank you. Adner, your campaign website says that you will reduce the rate of gun violence. What, as commissioner, will you do to reduce the rate of gun violence? What role do you see for the current or a reconstituted Citizens Review Board playing?
Thanks for the question. To be plain and simple, I think we have to look at very carefully about the report that you mentioned previously. This is nothing new. The Anatomy of a Homicide told us what most of us already know, but what it did, it also shed light on the issue that we have with expulsions. When we now narrow down to who is committing violent crime, most of them being with gun violence into our community, we know that it's most of those students had some issues with being expelled with school. And so we have to find paths. So when students are expelled from school, we don't just let them out into the streets. And not to suggest that students are committing all the crime, but we're saying that we want to make sure that we recognize patterns and we want to stop those. I think we have to stop when it comes down to fiscal responsibility. I think we have to stop allocating funds that we don't know what we're going to do with. We came up with the Children's Services Council to help address some of these issues. And then next thing that you know, the chamber is getting tons of money out of the Children's Services Council when they've never been youth oriented. We have to put our heads together to come up with real programs that go deeper into the community, not the community that is already going to be okay. Some of these programs that are receiving funding, they don't go into the communities that where these issues are very much housed. We need to make sure that the services that we put funding towards gets into these communities and that we hire individuals who come from these communities and we listen to individuals who also had experiences with the criminal justice system to best tell us how we can combat crime. I don't have that story for you. I've not been arrested. I have not been in those types of situations. So you have to learn from other individuals. I also think we need to invest in civil citation programs that keep young people from being labeled as felons, because it keeps them out of the military, keeps them out of getting most jobs. And most students, they'll make mistakes as they're growing up, and we don't have to label most of them as criminals, and then
We're at
scar
time.
their lives for the rest of their life. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Dianne, you're next. Your campaign website says Tallahasseans deserve to feel safe at home and at play in any neighborhood in Tallahassee. Since you were elected in 2018, what have you proposed the city do to deal with the violent crime problem? What role do you see for the current or a reconstituted Citizens Review Board playing?
Okay, let me first of all, let me separate the Citizen Review Board from this, because the Citizen Police Review Board, which I led the effort in the creation of, and my colleagues agreed with me, was to allow citizens to be able to look at police actions and make some decisions about recommending policy changes or training necessary. So let me separate that from that. When we're talking about what have I done, what have we done to try to make our streets safer, we have done a number of things. We're making sure that we have our officers who are community officers who are in our neighborhoods, who are befriending and working with our neighbors. Our community officers are doing that. We're also looking at programming to make sure that we allow children and young people an opportunity to earn money legitimately, such as our Tallahassee Future Leaders Academy. And one of the things that I'm asking that we're looking to do is to expand that beyond just the summertime, because we know that if we teach them how to work, if we teach them how to earn an honest living, that will continue. It worked for us, and I believe it will work for them. But we're also making sure for those who've had maybe a bad interaction with law enforcement, we're trying to reconnect them to allow them the opportunity to receive their GED, to go ahead and go to college, get a trade, or own a business. We're doing those things, and those things are happening because of the funding that we've set aside to make happen, and because we have recently received $500,000 from the state of Florida to expand this program. Yes, it is a temporal program, and yes, it is working. And we have placed many more than 2 or 3 people. I suggest that research be done before we put answers out there that are not true. That program is a homegrown program that has had great success. You don't get $500,000 signed off by the governor if you're not having some outcomes. So those are some of the things that we are doing to make sure that our streets are safe.
Thank you so much. And we're doing really well on time, y'all. So thank you so much. So switching gears just a bit, but of course, everything is interrelated. So everything ties together. One of the most talked about issues of recent memory was the vote of the Blueprint Board to borrow against future tax revenues to give $20 million of economic development funds to Florida State University to repair Doak Campbell Stadium. Blueprint staff justified this as a project to generate jobs in Tallahassee. But to many residents, it seemed that giving all this money to FSU did not make sense considering the needs of our city. Adner, you're up first this time. You've said that you would have voted against the FSU grant. Why? And what would you prefer Blueprint funds be used for?
I think this was just in light of it, I would have strongly voted no against this project because as we heard from the very citizens who lived here, 7-1, this was just an utter waste and a bad investment. Doak Campbell wasn't just about what we gave away. It's about what will never be because we gave it away. We will never have that money available again to bargain and bring businesses into Leon County, into Tallahassee, because we don't have that money available anymore to negotiate with. We will never be able to help small businesses grow into medium-sized businesses and minority businesses grow because that money is now gone into a project that will only generate maybe 45 jobs. We've put our investment into one egg that we don't know. In this uncertain time, we've seen stadiums shut down. We've seen arenas shut down with COVID. We have pandemics coming left and right. We don't know that this was not a sound decision, but this was a decision that was based about funding and money. And all you have to do is look at the finance reports of these elected officials and see dollars being thrown in before the vote, dollars being thrown in after the vote, and you'll get your answers there. We have too much interest in government, and this was a decision that I believe will haunt us for many years to come. I think it is a slap in the face of the residents when we say we can't meet the budget, but we just gave away $27 million. I think it was a fiscally irresponsible decision, and that is a decision that's going to haunt the residents of and limit our ability to provide for our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Dianne, you are a member of the Blueprint Board, and you voted multiple times to give the millions of dollars to Florida State University. Do you still think this was the best use of the money? And please explain your reasoning.
Okay, thank you for the question. Let me say this. Before the pandemic, we had a line item of $40 million for the building of a convention center. That's what we were working on, working to happen. We got great pushback to not do the convention center. I learned that Florida A&M needed some assistance in order to keep dollars in our community. We worked together with Florida A&M, and we were able to give Florida A&M $10 million of economic development dollars to be able to have a football season so we could bring those dollars here. I supported that. That came from that $40 million line item. Tallahassee Community College also came to us for a request for $1 million to be able to have some economic development, to be able to host tournaments and events here in the city. I supported that. So when it came to Florida State University, economic development dollars to improve safety facilities at the stadium, I did support that, because I am looking at 12% of the budget, of the Blueprint budget, not the city budget, the Blueprint budget, 12% for economic development. We also gave money for Amazon to come to town. We also gave money for Dan Foss to expand. And there is money still available in the economic development dollars to entice and encourage other businesses to come to this town. Now, I'm sorry that there's misinformation out there, but I am, as I can, I'm trying to explain why I supported it and what we get for it. I met with the president of Florida State University, and we are getting community benefits because I made sure he understood that public dollars equal public access. And we are prepared to share what those community benefits are, but time won't permit in this limited amount of time I have here. If that question comes, I'm ready to answer it. But yes, I supported that. I supported FAMU, I supported TCC, and I supported Florida State University, because the economic development that comes from having those events in our town is unmeasurable. Thank you.
Thank you. Shelby, you're next. You've said that you would have voted against the FSU grant. Why? And what would you prefer the Blueprint funds be used for?
Yeah, Blueprint, I would have voted no, because Blueprint exists to support economic development and public infrastructure. FSU receiving $20 million is not economic development. Whatever money that is generated from FSU, from events and football games, that money stays concentrated in FSU and College Town. That money does not trickle down to Southside. It does not trickle down to the West Side. It stays in FSU's area, and they continue to use that money to create even more revenue for themselves. When are we going to use public dollars to invest in the public? Instead, I would have supported microloans to small businesses that are trying to get started after the pandemic. I would have invested in a true community solar project that puts solar panels on people's homes and on apartment complexes so that we can reduce people's utility bills. We need to invest in the people who live here, who are struggling and who want opportunity. We do not need to give away more public dollars to FSU that already has the capital. We have local businesses here that are trying to find out, how do I get my business off the ground? How do I get into the market? We need to invest in the people here, because if we keep giving FSU money, we are going to allow them to maintain this monopoly that they have in Tallahassee, which also influences politics as well. So I don't support the FSU vote. I would have instead imported microloans to small businesses and developing a true community solar project and having a training pipeline for students and young adults to learn how to build solar panels on roofs and creating their own solar development companies. We need to think about what the future looks like, and investing $20 million into a stadium for luxury upgrades is not the future. We need to invest in the public.
Thank you for your answer. Next, we're going to move on to growth management, and especially as it relates to our trees and our water quality. So maybe I'm biased, but I do believe that Tallahassee is the most naturally beautiful city in Florida. Our oak trees, our canopy roads, waterways, rolling hills, an amazing diversity of wildlife and plants are why many people move here in the first place and why others choose to stay. But like all of Florida, Tallahassee is a growing city. And unfortunately, there is a perception among some Tallahassee residents that city growth management and planning primarily serves the wishes of developers, and that the goal of making Tallahassee a pleasant place to live, walk, ride a bike, shop, and work only gets lip service. One of the most common complaints made about the Tallahassee environment is that our trees keep being taken down and our lakes are being polluted. First up is Dianne. As a member of the City Commission, your point of view is different from those of the other candidates. You've generally supported city staff recommendations on development and growth management issues like the FAMU Way extension and associated retention pond, Walani, and recently the expansion of the urban services area on Woodville Highway and east of Southwood. Our trees are disappearing primarily due to large-scale developments similar to these. Our lakes are being polluted, such as Lake Munson. Can you please explain your thoughts on growth management and our tree ordinance and water management and how they align with your votes on the aforementioned projects? What changes does the city need to make, especially as it relates to developers?
Thank you for the question again. Let me just say that Tallahassee is considered a tree city. We're 55% covered with trees. We have on staff an an arborist. We also have on staff individuals who specialize in what we need to do with our trees and how best to protect them and how best to remove them when they're needed to be removed. And I support that. But I also support the fact that as a growing city, we've got to have places to house folks who are moving to Tallahassee. We've got to have housing at many levels. We've got to make way for the growth that is coming. And we've got to get ahead of the curve instead of being behind the curve. And there is a way to do that, have a balanced approach of making sure that we're doing what we need to do to grow, but also to protect our lakes, rivers, and streams. All of us, I believe, will agree that we enjoy what Tallahassee provides. I grew up in this region, in this area, and of course I moved to Tallahassee and have enjoyed living here on the South Side since 1989. And I enjoy the trees. I enjoy the lakes, rivers, and streams. I enjoy the animals. I do. But we have to make room for people. And I'm not catering to developers. My son was recently in the market for a house. It was a very difficult task to find a house, but he did find one. So what we're saying, we want to retain talent here. We want people to come here. We've got to have somewhere to put them. And in order to do that, we've got to develop our community in a very smart and environmentally friendly way. And we have ordinances in place to make sure that we have policies that we follow. And we're not half thinking about this. Much thought has been put into this as we follow those policies.
Thank you. Shelby, you're up next. What will you do, if elected, to manage growth and strengthen and improve enforcement of current tree protections on the part of the city and by developers? How would you improve and preserve our clean water and lakes, such as Lake Munson?
Yeah, so if elected, the first thing I would do is have the foresight to maintain and preserve the existing trees that we have. The reason why Tallahassee is a tree city now is because our former city commissioners and mayor took the time and the initiative to plant trees, to plant arboreums, and to make sure that we had a true canopy across our city. Now we are not investing in those same landscaping practices or building practices. We are clear cutting land, and we are allowing that clear cutted land to pollute our streams. And so we haven't had a fishable Lake Ella in decades. Lake Munson is polluted. Lake Jackson is polluted half the time when it's not drawn down. But we really do need to think about how is the landscaping practices and how are we allowing developers to essentially reduce the environmental regulations that we have for profit. As a commissioner, I will use the experience that I gained while a soil and water supervisor to invest into stronger regulation when it comes to protecting our trees and invest into stronger landscaping practices. Instead of just chopping off trees to protect our utility lines, we should be landscaping them so that they move up or they grow in different directions so they don't interfere with the utility lines. And then we should be thinking about how can we invest into our utility system to move those lines underground. We need a commissioner who has the foresight to think about how are we allowing developers to reduce the strength of our environmental regulations now, and how will that impact Tallahassee in the future? If we continue to allow developers to clear cut land, especially when it's for single family housing that is moving in an unsustainable direction while we're dealing with climate change, which adds more greenhouse gas emissions, that is not the direction Tallahassee should be moving in. We should be focusing on infill development, making more efficiently spaced housing, targeting students and low-income people so we have
Shelby.
affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Adner, same question. What will you do if elected to manage growth and strengthen and improve enforcement of current tree protections on the part of the city and by developers? How would you improve and preserve our clean water and lakes such as Lake Munson?
Yes. I think, when it comes down to growth in Tallahassee, we have to invest in sustainable growth practices here if we're going to do this correctly. We have neighborhoods that it's just beyond blight, but we have neighborhoods that we don't currently invest in. And so we have yet to fill in our urban dense core, our core here within the city limits. And now we're going out to and going out into urban, just sprawls all outside of the city limits. We have to concentrate in making sure that we invest in the necessary practices for environmental safety, make sure that we ask when we are permitting people to come out and build new development, that we make sure that they actually use sustainable practices, be it incentives that we can provide for them. We incentivize really we just make it too easy. And when I look at, how people come into Tallahassee, so especially developers, we make it way too easy. No bid processes and then large campaign donations that follow. No wonder people are coming to Tallahassee. I think, it's a little bit insulting to say that, we have available housing and we have to make room for people, and that we should just put aside all of our environmental safety regards and our requirement for the community. We want people to live and we want to make space for people to live, but we want to make sure that we are not just giving developers free for all access with no bid processes to land that is slowly gentrifying communities where they're raising rents beyond the average mean of citizens that can make here. I'm saddened just in the last couple of months, the number of residents who have said, hey, I can't afford rent. It's about $1,000, $2,000. My rent's upwards, and those same apartments were $600, $700. Everything that we're doing is just passing the cost down to residents here, and so we want to make people to be able to find places to live. If we're going to clean them, we just need to toughen up our regulations, toughen up our environmental standards, and make sure that we can make a way for people. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. I think we have time for one more question before we go to the Q&A section. So let's try to be, let's move through this one if we can. Climate change is the greatest threat to Florida. Every level of government has a role to play in solving this immense problem. Tallahassee has an added responsibility in that we are one of the few communities that controls our own electric utility. In 2019, the City Commission committed to create a clean energy plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions as much as possible, to reduce the energy burden on low-income residents, and by 2050, to reach 100% clean renewable energy for our entire community, including transportation and electricity generation. Shelby, you're up first. What do you think about these goals, the pace of the progress, and the city's continued promotion of natural gas despite the commitment to clean energy? What would you do regarding the transition to clean energy?
Yeah, so I currently work as a researcher studying utilities and how they're decarbonizing. And Tallahassee made the commitment in a resolution in 2019 to move our city forward in the clean energy direction. Besides having solar panels that were installed in 2016 under Mayor Gillum's administration, we haven't done much. We still have a utility system that over 90% of energy is generated from natural gas. We have allowed Amazon to come here and not have to invest into clean energy or renewable energy. And so we say that we are supporting of renewable energies and solar energy, but we're not actually showing any action on that. And so as commissioner, one of the very first things that we need to do is look at what are the current natural gas plants that we have, what are their retirement rates, and can we retire them before the time is up? And the next thing that we need to do is how can we provide incentives and rebates to the community to invest in solar, to reduce their utility bill and help us move forward. And then we have to stop investing in projects that add more greenhouse gas emissions to our community. We are in the city and the county are investing into the airport gateway project. We don't even have a shuttle bus that goes from the center of the city to the airport. Why are we expanding roads to increase more cars and more traffic and more greenhouse gas emissions? If we want to be prepared for the climate and adapt to the climate and have a resilient city, we need to invest into sustainable practices, and we have to stop investing into old, archaic ways of development. The future is renewable energy. We have our own utility system. We can do this, but we need the will of the commission to get us there. And with Commissioner Williams-Cox sitting here saying she supports renewable energy, but not showing any action, that is not getting us there.
Thank you. Next up, Adner, what do you think of the city's clean energy goals and of its continued promotion of natural gas? And what would you do to facilitate the transition to clean energy?
I think personally, the natural gas, we have to stop incentivizing it. It's just plain and simple. I think the goals that we have now are aspirational at best. And I think that we can do better. We can advance the date. You know, I know we're shooting for 2050. We can advance it and try as quick as possible to meet our goals early. However, if we keep saying that we want to get away from gas, but we keep incentivizing it so that when you go out and you're looking to purchase a new, water heater, you're going to go with gas because you get this huge incentive, we're never going to make it there. We have to start taking steps today to get to that level when we go there. I think we have to invest in renewable energy solutions. We have to invest in projects that make a less impact and a less carbon footprint here in our city. And again, we don't do that. A lot of it is just charts and numbers and, aspirations, but we have to start putting some action behind getting the work done. And I agree. Similarly, what Shelby says, I think that we have to strengthen our commitment to renewable energy because climate change is real. Thank you.
Thank you. Dianne, you voted for the 2019 resolution setting the city's clean energy goals. What do you think of the progress made since then and of the city's continued promotion of natural gas? What have you done since the 2019 resolution to further the city's transition to clean energy?
Thank you for the question. What we have done is we're quickly moving our city transit system from gas to electric. We've partnered with Florida State to also do the same thing, and we're looking for other partners to do that. We've also we have 2 solar farms at the airport, 2 of the largest in the state, I'm sure, at the airport for solar energy. We're also on the verge of developing a EV policy. But we've established ports around the city where folks who have electric vehicles can go and charge their vehicles. We are doing the things that we said we would do in that renewable energy plan that was put together, not by the city of Tallahassee. It was put together in a partnership with the city of Tallahassee and other environmentalists in our community. And this is an agreement that we have, not to do it in 2050, but to do it by 2050. So we are progressing along a timeline to get it done as soon as possible. 2050 is the absolute end of where we, when we hope to have it all done, but we can certainly work towards having it done before then. And I wholeheartedly agree and support that the renewable energy plan that we have in place. We're also working with some of our young students in our community to deal with climate they have provided to us, and we're working with them to come up with a declaration of what can be done and what we will do going forward. We cannot responsibly just cut off the use of gas because we're not ready for our community to jump wholesale. We've got to understand that there are cost inhibitors that will prevent some households from being able to realize some of the renewable energy efficiencies. We've got to work towards that. We talk about environmental justice. We can't just flip the switch and expect homeowners to be able to just do that. So we've got to ease into it, and that's what I support.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, we're going to move into our section of the program where we take questions from members of our audience. So if I call your name, please use the raise hand function of Zoom, which is found on the bottom of your screen in the reactions button. Push the reactions and the option to raise your hand will come right up there. If you would like to ask a question, please turn on your cameras or allow video, because we would love to see your smiling faces during this Q&A section. Our moderators will unmute you. Please know that you have 1 minute to ask your question, and each candidate will have 1 minute to answer. Please direct your questions through me, and I will call on each candidate to answer. So first up on my list here is Eric, if you are available to come off mute and on video.
Yep, I am here. Fix my hair real quick. I was all good when the video was off. So my question is, in light of the preemption that exists when it comes to raising the minimum wage beyond the state level, would you support the city of Tallahassee providing grants or low interest loans to people who want to start worker-owned businesses, worker co-ops here in Leon County?
All right. First up on the list here for that would be Dianne, if you could answer that question.
In fact, we're already working with organizations that are providing loan assistance for small businesses to be able to own their own business. If I'm understanding what you're asking correctly, we are working with the FAMU Credit Union, also with the Capital City Chamber and some of the Big Bend Minority Chamber. We've been working with those organizations to provide the necessary micro loans to help them do these businesses. During the pandemic, we also provided, from Blueprint dollars, we provided monies that allowed small businesses and nonprofits to reach out and receive grants. And grants meaning they did not have to pay them back to be able to keep their businesses afloat. In the CRA, we did, for those businesses in the CRA, we also did the same thing. So yes, I would support that.
Thank you. Next up, Adner, if you'd like to answer the same question.
I'm sorry, there was an audio cutout. I couldn't get his question.
Eric, could you repeat it briefly?
Yeah. So in light of the preemption that exists when it comes to raising the minimum wage beyond the state level, would you support the city of Tallahassee providing grants or low interest loans to people who want to start worker-owned businesses, worker co-ops here in Leon County?
Absolutely. I think that we have a very struggling economy here, and our local business owners, our small business owners, they're depending on that. And I think I would certainly have no objection to it. I would support. Thank you.
Thank you. Shelby, same question.
Yeah, I would absolutely support that initiative. And I think Tallahassee can actually go a step further. My husband and I, we started a business a year ago, a software firm, and where we had a lot of difficulty is finding steps to take to actually file for a business, who to contact to find space. I know FAMU has a small business development center that has been incredibly helpful, but the city needs to do more to increase access to this information. And I think can go a step further by having a directory or kiosk for people who are thinking about how to start my own business or how to access federal or state or local grants or opportunities to go to these kiosks or directories to get information. And another thing the city can do to help small businesses is buying materials in bulk to subsidize the cost barriers, especially for people who are first starting out at farmers markets. It would be incredibly simple for the city to have a program where you can buy containers, those Cash App or those Square things, and getting it from the city so that you can reduce the barriers to get your business off the ground and get clients and enter the market space.
Thank you. Next question from the audience comes from Barbara. Barbara, if you would please go on video and raise your hand so we can find you. And in just momentarily, you'll be able to ask your question. And the question I have after that, just while we're getting ready here, is from Linda. So Barbara first, then Linda afterwards. Is Barbara still on?
Was it Barbara Dunn?
I was just told Barbara is the only name I got. Sorry.
Jonathan, Barbara's question is, what is developing in a smart and environmentally friendly way? Don't think it's clear cutting. And I agree with her. It is not clear cutting. It is following our environmental policies for how we grow in our community. And we also must assess and make sure that if we're looking at trees, for instance, we must assess and make sure that those trees are healthy and that they can be maintained. And as Shelby said, around power lines, that they can be trimmed instead of taken down. So I agree with her that clear cutting is not necessarily environmentally friendly. However, when you're dealing with individuals and their private property, that's another matter that has to be considered when they decide what to do with their property. But we do have ordinances and guidance on how we can be environmentally friendly.
Thank you. So let's go to Adner. Can you answer that question, which is just basically a statement, which is developing in a smart and environmentally friendly way. What does that mean to you? Clear cutting doesn't seem to fit the environmentally friendly model. Can you respond to that if you choose?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. I think it's all about bringing balance back to the conversation and not having our local government and elected officials bend over backwards to give subsidies to change our urban services area every time a developer asks for it. I think that's my answer to Ms. Barbara's questions on how do you do it in an environmentally friendly way. I think that we have to be conscious of the environment, be conscious of our trees, and not just spreading out just because a developer asked for it. We have to do that in a very responsible way to lessen our carbon footprint. Thank you.
Thank you. Shelby, do you care to respond to that kind of statement and question?
Yeah, developing in a smart and environmentally friendly way is by considering the space that we have available and building within that space. So for example, and if we have people who want to buy homes or buy affordable units in Tallahassee, we don't need to build single family clear cut land, build single family housing that only serves 300 people. Instead, we should find areas within the city, within our urban core that's more walkable, more sustainable, more livable, find land, do infill development, and have be more efficient with our space. If we can be more efficient with our space, then we can reduce people having to drive to get somewhere. That reduces our greenhouse gas emissions. We can reduce our runoff. We can reduce how many trees have to be cut down. And we can also encourage developers to use trees as a way to landscape our city. We don't have to clear cut land. We can say, hey, we have a beautiful tree. Let's put it into the design instead of thinking of it as a barrier. Think of it as an opportunity to allow Tallahassee to maintain its tree canopy and its true character as being a tree city.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Linda M. And Linda, I see you on camera. If someone could unmute her so you can ask her question.
States can justify the relocating.
Oh, wait, Linda, can you start again? Sorry, we missed the beginning.
Okay, I want to ask any of the candidates if they can justify the relocation of FAMU Way Extension number 3 from the Gamble Street corridor into an area that wiped out a community of some 60 years, where people would return every evening in the summer to meet, play music, eat supper, and enjoy a canopy of about 10 degrees cooler every night. And if they can also justify the wiping out of an orchard of patriarch oaks, one of which, Mr. Benton's oak, was 77 inches in circumference, chest high. If they see any need to do this kind of thing just to extend FAMU Way, which could have been routed the original way through Gamble Street. Thank you.
Okay, we have 1 minute to respond here from each of you. We'll start with Adner. Adner, could you please respond?
I just have a very simple response to it. I just basically believe that the way that FAMU extension project displaced many of the residents there, destroyed affordable housing options, was just wrong. And that's all that I can really say about that. Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have Shelby.
There is absolutely no way to justify the decision to reroute the pond to destroy a historically Black working class neighborhood that has been established since the Jim Crow era. We had families who lost housing, and the money that that blueprint gave them was not enough to be able to afford housing in other areas. And that is a tactic that was common during the 60s, the 50s and 60s during urban renewal. And so it is unacceptable for the city to continue that pattern of using public dollars to destroy historically Black neighborhoods for the benefit of removal of blight. Instead, use public dollars to help people invest into the quality of their home. But you cannot justify destroying people's homes just to reroute a pond when there was several other options on the table.
The name
Thank
of this
you.
community was Boynton Still.
Thank you, Linda. Dianne, your opportunity to respond is now.
Absolutely. Let me just say that when I came to the commission, this project was a 10-year project. It was well underway. We came in on the very end of it. And it was my understanding, I went over there and I visited with the individuals there. The housing there was deplorable. There was housing that had no indoor plumbing. There was housing there that was dilapidated and almost torn down. So, and many of the people who lived there rented, and offers were made, offers were agreed to prior to my coming to the commission to provide funding for those individuals to relocate. I even knew a family personally who appreciated what they were provided, the opportunity to move. So I would just say this: there comes a time where sometimes you just can't justify the ends for the means. But in this instance, this project had taken place. It had been going on for 10 years prior to my getting there, and I believe that what we did was the best that we could do at that moment in time. Moving forward, I am open and willing to look at other ways to do what we need to do in the name of progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, we're going to take one more question. It's a question from Facebook, because we also have a Facebook audience watching. The question is, what are your thoughts on Zillow and similar companies buying up real estate in the area? We'll start with Shelby this time. A question about Zillow buying up real estate or other companies like that.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about tech as someone who used to be in the tech world. And companies like Zillow are taking advantage of markets like in Tallahassee where they can inflate the price. We should not be allowing tech companies to influence our local market. And one thing that the City Commission can do to combat that is restricting the number of Airbnb or guest or rental housing that landlords can purchase for rent. We have people like myself who are trying to purchase homes and build families. If we allow Zillow and other tech companies to manipulate the market and increase the number of rental housing units we have on the market, that reduces the supply and makes it a lot harder for college students, for young professionals, for long-term residents to move from that transient definition and to become more stable in Tallahassee and to increase the amount of equity that they have in their pocket. So Zillow, unfortunately, is influencing Tallahassee's market, but the power that our City Commission has is being able to regulate that market through policy by reducing the impact they have, by reducing the amount of rental housing that landlords can buy, and by reducing the power that Zillow has over our current market.
Thank you, Shelby. Next, Dianne.
Thank you for the question. I think that sometimes the city of Tallahassee and our authority is far extended, and we will give them more credit than we actually do. We have to abide by Florida statutes. We have to abide by the law. And I am not aware of any policy that the city of Tallahassee, with our authority, and I can be enlightened, and I will ask this question. I am not aware of anywhere where we can prevent or prohibit free market trade for real estate or any other matter for that. As a matter of fact, if there is a way to stop it, I need to be enlightened on what that way is. But that, when you start doing that without a good, knowing what you're dealing with, you start infringing upon individuals' ability to manage their own business and to manage their own affairs. And so I am not pleased that the market is being taken advantage of, but it's happening all over the United States. Housing is an issue everywhere. And I am open to solutions or suggestions on what we can do within law to prevent it. And I will ask that question of our city attorney.
Thank you. Next up is Adner. Please respond.
To the question, I'll just say it comes back to who you're working for. The incumbent in this seat is funded by real estate developer interests, and I'm funded by everyday people, and I'm going to make it a priority of mine to fight for our neighborhoods. We have to start there. I don't like the fact that the market is being taken advantage of. However, we have to do everything that we can as city commissioners to make sure that there is a plethora of available housing options for individuals so that the market, despite outside manipulation, can be sustainable and that it's actually affordable. And that's just not a word that we throw around. We want to make sure that individuals can actually afford to purchase here in this market. And so that's my short answer. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to try to sneak in another question here if we can, because this is going really well, is what I'm being advised. Randy Denker, you are next if you would like to unmute yourself. And if someone could please make her the spotlight.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, Commissioner Williams-Cox and aspiring commissioners. My question is about Welaunee and the inclusion of Welaunee within the urban service area boundary. And if you voted for it, could you explain why? And if you are an aspiring commissioner, could you explain what you would have done if you had been in the commission at that time?
All right, we'll start with Adner, please, this time.
If I was on the commission, I would not have voted for the Welaunee project. I think it was just actually a waste, and it's a way to bring city services outside of the city limits. And I think it's back to what I just said earlier. You have to bring back, balance to this conversation. We haven't filled in the urban service area here within the city limits, and now we have to make sure that we're growing, but growing smarter. And I think it means staying true to the intent, the original intent of our comp plan. And like I said, the Welaunee plan amendment, our incumbent, she flip-flopped on it. She was against it at the very beginning and then flip-flopped and voted, with the developers. And so I think once we have to remove these interests in our community, and then we can go. I would have voted against it. And I think that our incumbent knew that. She voted against it for all the right reasons before flip-flopping. So again, I'd have been against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Shelby, you're next on my list here.
I would have been against it as well, mainly because we cannot continue to cede power to developers. It is unprecedented that they were allowed to push through this project and amend the boundaries of our urban service area. We cannot continue to allow city commissioners to yield to developers to completely change the landscape and the demographic of our city. These developers are catering to, let's be honest, the white middle class. We need our city commissioners to recognize when developers have too much political power, go against it and their abuse of power, and focus on the people here, our existing population that needs housing, that needs support, and that needs to be uplifted. We cannot continue to allow developers and city commissioners to do their bidding. They have too much political power, and we don't need another commissioner that is just supporting developers. We need a commissioner who is unwavering in their support for the public and for our existing population and investing funds into the people who are here and need support.
Thank you. And Dianne, you have the last word.
Okay. I did vote for the Wilani expansion. I also voted for the expansion to the south because I believe we do need room and we need space to put individuals as we grow our city. And we need that expansion on the south end as well as we needed it on the north end. And as we are continuing to grow, we want all parts of our city to have city services, sidewalks, lights, and sewer. We want that for our city so that folks can live wherever they want to live without living on top of one another, without being cramped or crowded. And if we're expecting the kind of growth that we've been told that we're going to have over the next few years, we've got to have somewhere to put people and not stack them on top of one another. So I did vote for it for that reason, because I wanted to also see the expansion to the south. And let me just say this. I have worked in this community for the past 30 years on many issues. I have never been accused of the lack of integrity like I have been in this race. It is okay. It's all right. I am doing the best job that I can do for the people who sent me there. And I'll say this, if, I'm not doing it as well as you like, you have options. And I appreciate that. I would love to continue to have your support in doing what we're doing. And I welcome talking to you on an individual basis about any issue you may have. But I did vote for it. And those are my reasons for doing so. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get to all the questions. This has been a heck of a lot of fun. I'll tell you that. I wish we could. And if we are not able to get to your question, please still put it in the chat here or leave a comment on the Facebook page, and we will make sure that all those questions get forwarded to the candidates, and we'll ask them to respond on the Facebook page for Leon Dems, which is facebook.com/Leon Dems. Hopefully you all are friends with that. Okay. So I do apologize for not being able to get to all those questions. You have the candidates' information if you'd like to get in contact with them. I'm sure they'll be happy to talk to you as voters in this city. Important announcements will be presented now, so please stay on for just a few more minutes for messages from the Leon County Dem presenters. I want to thank the candidates for their participation, and I want to thank you, our audience, for attending. This has been a really great afternoon for me. I loved it, learned a lot today. And thank you for being cordial, respectful, and answering the questions as thoroughly as you could. This has been our first Democratic Candidate Forum, the first of 9 forums in our summer series. Forums will be held every Saturday through August 13th for our important local elections occurring during the primary election cycle. We hope to see you again at each and every single one. Have a wonderful, wonderful day today, and make sure you all are staying hydrated. I'll pass it on to Marcia or anyone else from the Leon County DEC who would like to take it over now.
Hi, before you go, we'd like to ask for your help. The most important thing the Leon Dems did in 2020 was send a voter guide postcard to every Dem household before the elections. We need help paying for this year's voter guides. Many people take these cards to the polls with them. The guides tell who the Dems are, even in the so-called nonpartisan races like this one, and give critical information about voting early and by mail, and provide our Leon Dem helpline number, which a lot of people used in 2020. We need to raise $27,000 to get the cards to every Dem home for the primary. Vote by mail starts in a month. Ballots go out July 14th, so we're trying to raise this money as quickly as possible. Please, if you can, help us out. You can use this QR code or the internet address. We're counting on Dems who can to help inform all Dems with this card and to help them vote. Thank you.